Up in the far north, our world is thawing out. And as all that ancient ice melts, it's like opening a Pandora's box of secrets. Some of them are these incredible windows into our planet's deep, deep past. But others, they could pose a terrifying threat to our future. So what we're really looking at here is a story of both immense danger and just unbelievable possibility, all of it locked away for millennia in the frozen ground. It's such a simple question, right? But the answers are anything but simple. Because what's waking up isn't just rock and soil. No, it's life. Life that's been frozen in time. We're talking everything from microscopic organisms to massive prehistoric animals. Earth's giant natural freezer is finally opening its doors. And just look at this. These are the tumit wolf cubs. They were sisters who died in their den more than 14,000 years ago in Siberia. I mean, the preservation is so perfect, it's mind-blowing. Scientists could even identify their last meal, which included the undigested remains of a woolly rhino. This is what we mean by a time capsule. These cubs, they make the whole abstract idea of a frozen past feel incredibly real. Yeah, but not everything coming out of that ice is as incredible as a perfectly preserved wolf cub. Some of it, it's a whole lot scarier. And that brings us to the first part of our story, the very real potential for a new kind of pandemic, one that's literally been on ice, just waiting. Okay, so what are we actually talking about when we say permafrost? It's not just frozen dirt. Think of it as this giant natural freezer made of soil, gravel, and sand, all cemented together by ice. And it has been stable, totally frozen for millions of years. Well, until now. And the sheer scale of this natural freezer, it is absolutely mind-boggling. Permafrost covers a full quarter, 25%, of the entire northern hemisphere. Just wrap your head around that for a second. An area of immense size, filled with perfectly preserved organic material, is now thawing faster and faster because the Arctic is warming up 3 times faster than the rest of the planet. So what's actually in there? Well, scientists have been finding some stuff that is frankly terrifying. Dormant anthrax has already been linked to outbreaks in Siberia. They found RNA fragments from the 1918 Spanish flu virus in bodies from mass graves in Alaska, and even DNA from smallpox in frozen Siberian mummies. And get this, they have revived giant viruses, like the Spitha virus, after they were dormant for 30,000 years. They literally brought them back to life in a lab. And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. As Alec Christie from the University of Cambridge puts it, the real fear here is the unknown. The worst-case scenario is that we release some highly infectious virus that our immune systems have just never seen before, a microscopic threat from the deep past that we would have absolutely no defense against. Okay, that is a truly terrifying thought. But what if I told you that this is where our story takes a wild, completely unexpected turn? Because if the problem is a collapsing ancient ecosystem, what if the solution is to bring a key piece of it back? What if that very same permafrost holds not just the plague, but also the cure? This brings us to one of the most audacious, most ambitious scientific projects maybe ever. A plan to fight climate change and lock these ancient pathogens back in the ice by resurrecting an icon of the Ice Age. So, meet our hero. And yeah, it's an unlikely one, the woolly mammoth. A biotech company called Colossal Biosciences is spearheading this landmark project not just to study the mammoth, but to actually bring it back. The goal is to create a living, breathing, cold-resistant elephant that looks, sounds, and acts just like the mammoths that vanished 4,000 years ago. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how on earth is this even possible? Well, it's a marvel of modern genetic engineering. First, scientists take the mammoth's ancient DNA and compare it to its closest living relative, the Asian elephant, which, by the way, is a 99.6% match. Then, using a gene editing tool called CRISPR, they essentially copy and paste key mammoth genes for things like shaggy hair and extra layers of fat into an elephant's DNA. That new hybrid cell is then used to create an embryo, which would be carried by a surrogate elephant mother. But why? Why go through all this trouble? The key thing to understand here is that this is not about making some kind of prehistoric petting zoo. The goal is so much bigger than that. It's about restoring an entire lost ecosystem to help solve a modern crisis. So let's do a little side-by-side comparison. The Arctic we have today, it's mostly mossy forests, kind of swampy tundra. It soaks up the sun's heat, and as it thaws, it bleeds carbon into the atmosphere. But 10,000 years ago,
This was the Mammoth steppe, the largest ecosystem on Earth. It was this vast grassland, kept that way by millions of giant herbivores, and it acted like a massive blanket of insulation, keeping the permafrost underneath frozen solid.
And the stakes here? They are just astronomically high. That permafrost currently holds 1,600 billion metric tons of carbon. To put that in perspective, that's more than double the amount that's currently in our entire atmosphere. If all of that thaws and gets released, well, it would be a climate catastrophe on a scale we can barely imagine. And this is where it all comes together. This is the mammoth's real mission. These animals aren't just animals, they're eco-engineers. By knocking down trees, they let the grasslands grow back. And in the winter, they scrape away the insulating snow, which lets that frigid Arctic air penetrate deep into the soil, keeping the permafrost frozen solid. The idea is, bringing back the mammoth could restore the planet's best defense against a ticking carbon bomb. All right, I know what you're thinking. Bringing back mammoths to fight climate change, it sounds completely nuts, right? Straight out of science fiction. But how close are we, really? Is any of this actually happening? Well, believe it or not, the science is moving way faster than you might think. The science of working with ancient life, it's been making these unbelievable leaps and bounds. I mean, researchers have pulled DNA from a 1.2 times million-year-old mammoth tooth. They found a 52,000-year-old specimen so perfectly preserved, they're calling its DNA chromoglass. But the most remarkable stuff involves life that's even older. And then there's this little guy. This tiny creature is a nematode worm. It was frozen solid in the Siberian permafrost for 46,000 years. And just recently, scientists in a lab thawed it out, and it started moving and reproducing. I mean, this is the moment that sci-fi just became reality. It is stone-cold proof that complex life can survive for geologic time in a deep freeze and actually be brought back. So, okay, we know it's possible to bring ancient life back, and we've heard the compelling argument for why we'd want to. But just because we can do something, does that mean we should? And as you can imagine, this has sparked a really fierce public debate. On one side of this whole debate, you've got this really deep and honestly pretty understandable fear. This Reddit user sums it up perfectly. What if, in our attempts to be clever and bring back the past, we accidentally unleash a lethal virus on humanity? Are we just playing with fire here? But then, on the flip side, you have the powerful argument for fixing what we broke. As this user points out, the mammoth wasn't just some animal wandering around. It was a keystone species. It was the engineer that maintained an ecosystem vital for locking up carbon. Now that it's gone, that system is broken, and we're feeling the consequences. And then there's a third really critical question that comes up all the time: priorities. With hundreds of millions of dollars pouring into de-extinction, a lot of people are asking, why not save the animals that are still here? With so many species on the verge of extinction right now, today, is this really the best use of our time and money? You know, it all really boils down to this one huge question. We have actually developed the tools to reach back in time, to edit the very code of life, and to bring back species that our own ancestors helped push into extinction. The technology, it's not really the barrier anymore. The barrier now is us. It's ethical. So here we are, standing at this incredible crossroads in human history, and we are left with a massive dilemma. Do we have an obligation to bring these species back, to try and correct the massive ecological damage we've done? Or, in trying to fix the mistakes of the past, are we just setting ourselves up to create the catastrophe of the future? The answer is anything but clear.